Hello, everyone. Welcome back. I have not posted for about 2 weeks. I was a little bit busy. I ran a couple of camps. I taught a lot of chess. I had pretty good couple of weeks. I did not have a chance to play in any tournaments, but now I'm back. I'm ready to teach. I'm ready to play. I'm ready to share this new and exciting material. And today we're going to highlight one of my students. His name is Sudeep. He became very serious about chess about 2.5 months ago. He plays a lot of chess. He raised his rapid rating on chess.com by more than 400 points. He used to be rated 1400. Now he is 1850. He reached the high of 1862, and I expect him to keep improving and keep getting better. Um, he's playing in a tournament in Indianapolis this weekend, and if he takes his time and doesn't rush, I expect great things. And we're going to look at the game he played 4 days ago against someone famous, Samay Raina. Samay Raina has a YouTube page with more than 700,000 subscribers. He also has a Wikipedia page. He's a comedian, he's a YouTuber, and he plays chess. And he's pretty good at chess, as you can tell by the rating of 1853. And this is the game Sudeep played against Samay. Let's look. Let's see what happened. Let's learn. E4, C5, Sicilian Defense, Knight F3, to prepare D4, A6. This is called the O'Kelly variation, and the main point of the O'Kelly is to make D4 a lot less fun for white. And we will see why it's less fun, because Sudeep played it. If D4 takes, and now Samay slightly misplayed it. He played the move pawn E5. The best move here is Knight F6, attacking the pawn. We cannot push this pawn. I'm going to pause and have you figure out why not. I hope you were able to find the answer. If we push, black will fork and win the pawn on E5. So this means that white would have to defend, but now E5, attacking this knight. After the knight moves, it doesn't matter where. Let's say here, we got this move, pin the knight, threatening to take. And if white now defends, black can play G5, double attacking this pawn, and black is doing quite well. So important lesson which I want you to remember is if your opponent plays A6, do not play D4 right away, play Knight C3 first, see what they do, and then eventually you might play D4. Okay, let's look at the actual game. A6, D4, takes. Samay misplays it, plays E5, attacking the knight. Sudeep saves the knight, attacks the pawn. Samay defends the pawn, nothing special. Sudeep develops his bishop. Samay plays knight f6, which is a small mistake because now white can play knight g5 and double attacking this pawn, and defending this pawn is not so easy. Samay played pawn g5 because there's nothing else. Queen e7 does not work because white will take anyway, and black cannot take because he will lose his queen. And here Sudeep makes a small mistake. He plays the most obvious move. He takes with a pawn. But the thing which is important is once upon a time, everyone was taught when you're taking something, start with the smallest thing first, which in general is true, but there are important exceptions, and this is one of them. If we took with a bishop, we just get this pawn for free. So Deep takes with a pawn, and the problem is, of course, black cannot take back. Samay knows that quite well. Instead, he plays knight a5, attacking this bishop. If we try to keep defending the pawn with, let's say, bishop b3. Black will take. After we take back, this pawn just becomes free. Okay, so Sudip dropped the bishop back. Samay now takes the pawn, but this is a small mistake. And now I'm going to pause and have you find a good continuation for white. And the move which white should play is bishop f3, double attacking the knight. And the problem is the knight cannot move. Because if the knight moves, let's say here, white can take the queen and then fork. That means that after bishop f3, black has to do something like this. At that point, white can at least take, ruin black pawns. This guy is a terrible. White also has two bishops. This knight is misplaced, and white is doing quite well. Instead, Sudip dropped the knight back to e4, which is a decent square for the knight, but it's less good. Samay wants to castle, so bishop e7. Sudip gains a little bit of space, kicks the knight. The knight moves to f4, which might not be the best idea because Sudip trades queens, and then he takes the knight. And in this position, each side has a pawn majority, but the white's pawn majority on the queen's side can eventually be converted into a passed pawn. Black pawns are doubled, so it's going to be much harder for him to create a passed pawn on the king side. So deep castles, good move. Samay castles, still good. So deep develops all the pieces, makes sense. Samay brings the rook into the game. And Sudip plays a good move, knight d6, because if your opponent has two bishops and you don't, a lot of the time it's a good idea to trade off one of those bishops. And this is what Sudip does with this move. It's a good move. Samay saves his rook. Sudip takes, Samay takes back. Okay. And here Sudip has a tactic. I'm going to pause and have you find it. And the tactic is quite simple. Always pay attention when pieces are on the same line, on the same diagonal. These guys can be very, very, very easily attacked. And Sudip can win stuff. Instead, he played pawn b3. Why did he do this? Well, let me explain psychology of chess. Sudip said, okay, my pawn is attacked. What's the best way to defend? He found the best way, and he stopped looking for everything else. In every position, look for forcing moves. Yes, it is important to figure out why your opponent is making their moves, but you still need to look at forcing moves for yourself. Sudip plays pawn b3, he defends, but now Samay has his own tactics. This is happening. Another problem is this knight is busy defending this bishop. So Sudip moves the rook, defends the knight. Samay takes the knight. If we take, we simply down a piece. So now Sudip finds his tactic over here. Samay drops the bishop back because it was attacked. Sudip takes, Samay takes back. In this position, white has a rook for a knight and a bishop. A knight and a bishop are better than a rook if they know how to work together. So let's see what happens. Sudip attacks the pawn, improving the rook. That's not terrible. Samay saves the pawn, solidifies his pawn structure, and Sudip takes an open line. And here's this rook wants to go here, so Samay probably needs to stop it by playing rook c7. Instead, he brings the knight back, which makes sense, but that's something which could have been possible later. And now white pieces become more active than they deserve to be. Sudip plays rook d7, attacking this pawn. The pawn saves itself, and now Sudip doubles up. These pieces are very, very active. Samay puts a knight on a very nice square in the middle. Sudip starts to attack the pawns. Samay defends. Sudeep attacks more pawns. Samay decides to defend like this, which is fine. Rook defends pawn. We got a pawn trade takes. One thing to remember, every pawn trade opens up lines. Who wants open lines? The side which has more rooks. So white is more happy about this development. The fewer pawns, the more active the rooks become. And Sudeep plays a very smart move. He wants to create a passed pawn. Samay plays b4, says, okay, I'm attacking your pawn. Sudeep tries to defend, but now black has a tactic, which he doesn't find. But I will pause and have you find it. I hope you were able to find knight b3. At first it looks like it's just a free knight, but the problem is this rook is tied down to the back rank, so white cannot take the knight because there will be a checkmate. Samay thought he found a tactic, but it's a really, really bad tactic. He checks, and after white takes, he forks. The problem is, this is where Samay stopped his calculation, and this pawn, which white has, this is a passed pawn, with the knight here and the bishop here, it's going to be very hard for black to stop it. So, important lesson here, when you calculate, don't just calculate up to the point when the position looks good for you. Calculate to the end. Sudeep brings the king, black grabs the pawn, and Sudeep starts rying his pawn. Knight takes pawn, Sudeep keeps rying the pawn. Black tries his best to stop it, and now Sudeep finds a very nice tactic which allows the queen of the pawn. I will pause, and you will find it for me. I hope you were able to find a very nice move. Rook takes pawn, sacrificing the rook, and now the pawn just runs all the way down. So boom. By the way, we could have also done this. This would have worked maybe even better, but Sudeep decided to do it in a flashy way. He takes, and now the pawn runs. But the game is still very instructive, and you will see why. Black has his own pawn, and the plan for Sudeep is after he queens pawn b2, Sudeep stops the pawn from queen, but pawn e4, and although Sudeep has a queen, and Samay only has a bishop and a knight, it's very hard for white to try to win this because he cannot take this pawn because it's defended, and it's very hard to do anything about this bishop because someone needs to be stopping this pawn from queen. Sudeep brings his king in, and now Samay plays a natural move, but it's not best. He decides to improve his king. The best move here is to try to queen this pawn, knight a4, because remember white cannot take because black will queen, and black is threatening to bring the knight here and try to queen the pawn anyway. Also in this specific case, this happens to be a fork. Samay instead brought his king closer. And now Sudeep has a plan. He wants to put the king in front of the pawn so that the queen is not stuck babysitting over here. The queen could go and play chess. Smart move, smart idea. This is why in chess it's important to form plans and not just play one move at a time. Black brings the knight. Okay, he's attacking this pawn, which kind of makes sense. Sudeep should probably consider defending, but he checks first, that's fine. Samay blocks the check, and Sudeep needs to stop this pawn from queen, but he gives up this pawn in the process. Black decides to grab this pawn instead, which makes sense. We got a fork. King moves. Samay takes that pawn, but now Sudeep forks here and takes this pawn. Now the knight is being attacked. This pawn is being attacked. Samay saves the knight. Sudeep decides to check. Black has to be a little bit careful. This is attacked, this is secured. So the only move for black, which Samay finds, is save the bishop and block from check. Sudeep grabs this pawn. Knight f3. Sudeep attacks the knight. The knight grabs the pawn. And it's very hard for white to win this because the queen by herself cannot cause enough trouble to overwhelm this guy. And white cannot win this pawn because it will forever be defended. So as long as black doesn't do anything crazy, which he will do, this game should probably end in a draw. Queen D, I mean, it creates kind of this threat of forking, and after the knight blocks pawn here to use the spin. Samay obviously realizes that, so Deep does it anyway. He's threatening to use the spin. Samay stops that. Um, the problem for white, again, everything that black has defends everything else. The king defends the pawn and the knight defends the bishop, the king defends the bishop defends the pawn, and it's very hard for white to try to win this. Okay, queen e1. Okay, cute move. White really cannot take, of course, because of the fork. So here. Also discovery. Sudeep is smart, he does not take. He moves his queen. Now he can kind of take. So Samay defends again. Okay, the knight gets attacked. Knight e3, that's a good knight. Again, everything defends everything. Check. Samay keeps everything together. Queen e4. Samay keeps everything together. Queen here, and black should just do nothing. Because doing something is very hard. And for now, everything defends everything. Except Samay tried to do something. He played king h4, going after this pawn, but of course, the problem is now both of these guys are not defended, and so Sudeep finds a very simple move, which forks both of them. And this game went on for a little bit longer, but eventually black had to resign. So very instructive game, a lot of ideas to remember. Remember the O'Kelly variation. Remember the point that you should not play g4. You should play knight c3. Remember that usually you want to take with the smallest thing when you have a choice, but sometimes there are exceptions. Especially when the smallest thing is very hard to defend. Remember also that it's important to pay attention to your opponent's threats, but you still need to look for forcing moves. This was a very instructive moment. Sudeep realized the problem. He found a solution, but he could have just won a rook. And the last thing to remember is when you're calculating tactics, calculate to the end. Don't calculate up to the point where it looks good for you. Because this, in this example here, Samay found this move, rook c1, and he saw the fork, and this is why he stopped calculating. But in the resulting position, which you need to evaluate, is there is this pawn which wants to become a queen. Okay, I hope you found this video instructive. I hope you found it fun. I'm happy because my student beat Samay Raina, and I will be back soon with more instructive and fun material. Please like, please subscribe. Thank you.